Lies. Lies. It's all good. Hold on. It's connecting. Got it. Okay. We are streaming live on YouTube. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. My name is Kelby, Executive Director, HISadvocates. So if this is, and guys, I'm sorry because Tracy has asked me to go live on YouTube. I got to kind of clear the air with the YouTube people down the road. We are a ministry located on California in the United States of America. And we help people become state citizens. And this is a Q&A where everybody gets to come, both active living in the private members, which is our program that allows people to come into the private as a state of the union citizen. A lot of rhetoric out there about state nationals of the United States, all traps. I prove it in law. So if you want to know what an American is, you guys got to look at what the founder said. And if you want to know what is supported in law, you just got to look at the Supreme Court rulings. There's 100+ Supreme Court rulings minimum that we found regarding state citizenship. There is none for nationals of the United States. None of that stuff is protected. They are all synonymous with U.S. citizens, and they all fall under the jurisdiction of the United States. Boom. So we teach people how to be true Americans. And this is a Q&A that we answer all kinds of questions. And sometimes Tracy and I joke. And, because of the times that we're in, it's a little race driven, but there's a lot of love there and there's a lot of respect there. So I'm going to get to the first question. What separation should my wife expect to need for her tax preparer? We have a transmutation to separate our assets. Her tax preparer says she can't benefit from my income. This was before the foundation. I don't know. Honestly, Todd, I know a lot about tax preparation. I just know you're not going to be filing anymore. Is your wife going through the living in the private? If she is not, then she is probably going to want to do a married sole and separate. And you're obviously separating your assets now. If I were you, I would somehow figure out how to get all the assets into a foundation and not into your own personal names. The tax benefits for having everything in a foundation is you get the donation. Secondary tax benefit is you are sheltered and you have zero liability on stocks transferring over when you retire, cash transferring over when you retire, annuities transferring over when you retire, what have you. What a lot of people don't know is when Bill Gates retired, he had put all of his money, stocks into Microsoft, into the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And because of doing that, he did not have any taxes whatsoever upon retirement. It's a legal maneuver. So there's a lot of benefits of certain conversations that you may want to have with your wife, with us, pertaining to the tax strategies for you. But that's about it. You know what I didn't do, Tracy? I didn't record that. So you're going to have to tell Todd to go onto YouTube to get that answer. And you know what? It's all your fault. You know you're supposed to remind me. Wow.
Well, don't forget this time.
Wow.
Push record.
Gee, man. Thanks, Trace. Once in a private and property assets are transferred to the foundation, do property taxes go away? No. So every element of moving, everything is a moving target. And the element of living in the private, the program that we offer deals with all personal, anything that you're dealing with currently, your taxes, your properties, your cars, your person, meaning you as a living man or woman, becoming private, the way that you conduct business becoming private, the way that you receive mail becoming private. It's all handled within the living in the private program. Now, the element of property taxes is an individual thing because the property is is separate from you as an individual. However, you just asked the question, if I've moved my property into the foundation, there are 2 or 3 different things that can be done. Number one, the property would essentially become owned by a church, and would fall under an exemption at the county recorder's office for paying property taxes. Now, I don't necessarily like to do it that way, but multiple HISadvocates members have done it that way and fill the paperwork out, retaining all the rights, and still get the exemption. That's one way. The second way is, as a licensed real estate broker in the state of California, I've done thousands of loans. I understand title probably better than the average bear. The only reason why I'm saying that is because you can, one of the questions on the broker's exam, and I've said this 100 times, but there's a lot of new people listening, is that there's no requirement to file a deed into the county recorder upon sale. And I thought there was an absolute, and that actually blew my mind when I realized the ramifications of not having to file a deed in the county recorder. I'm like, well, how does tax get set up? How does the person going to be payable or paying tax? How is this? How is that? And so all those things came up in my mind. And so there are some strategies of which we've already answered at, we've exhausted this answer. And so we have on hisadvocates.org, you can go to our Q&A section and you can click on the real estate, and you will see a lot of different ways to do this. We don't offer a product for this because what we do, we're able to guarantee our work, meaning we know what we're doing and we know how to perfect an administrative record. We know how to deal with the Department of the State on getting you a passport as a state citizen. We know all those things, but the county recorder, they're fighting like crazy trying to keep all property inside the county recorder, because once you pull it out, you're actually sitting on some patent somewhere in their mind. And in essence, and I always say this to people, in essence, it's like having a allodial title. Now, the way that you do the deed is the most important thing. And so, do you record that deed? Is it a counter deed? Go look that up in Black's Law. It's a private deed that trumps the public side recording deed when presented. That's in Black's Law, counter deed. So there's a ton of ways to slice at that, is my point. And we've exhausted that answer over and over. So hisadvocates.org, go to at the top of the homepage, you'll see a link that says past shows and videos. Just click on that. Don't worry about the drop down. Click on that. And then the next is says sort sets alphabetically on the right. You click on that and you go look for real estate. You go look for land patents. You go look for, which I discuss. I don't necessarily believe you can affect the land patent, but there's all kinds of elements of questions that I've answered pertaining to land, home, real estate, and so forth. Okay, now I know you guys are typing in the Q&A. We're going to get to some local questions first. Keep typing in the Q&A. We will get to them, I promise. When purchasing a property all cash, what are the steps to not publicly record it, and how is the deed structured? Do you recommend purchasing in the legal name or the foundation name? If there's a pushback from the county recorder / title company, can you help with resources? We are currently purchasing property and want to step up the transaction correctly at the onset. So it's a huge question. That's an hour-long answer, and this is why we've talked about those answers over and over and over and over. And the most important is, how's the deed structured? And I've told this story, but basically all old school deeds are buy gold or silver by hand, meaning hand delivered. You're using meets and bounds. That's the description of the land. You're not going to use a legal description. And the recordation type would be fee simple. And you put a return address that's other than yours, and it's private counsel. And you record it in the name of the foundation. So what you've done is you've taken the elements of the FRNs off the table, because there is a Supreme Court ruling that's where Federal Reserve notes are a part of any transaction. They are involved and or have rights to. Secondly, because we fail for lack of knowledge, we're recording air today, which is a legal description. It's everything above the ground. Thirdly, we're recording in error, joint tenants, tenant in commons, largely because that is the way the lenders are asking us to do it, because we're getting a loan. So we don't realize that we're being defrauded from the very beginning all the way across the board onto how to properly purchase land. And just that term real estate is a registered trademark, and it's not something necessarily that I like. So if you want help in that area, a consult would be best. And we would have to sit there and I'd ask you a bunch of questions. If you're in the living in the private, which I believe you are, you can simply ask Rob for a copy of a deed that you can use as a template, and go and watch these short presentations on the Q&As that I've done before pertaining to real estate, because it'll be very helpful for you to understand how to effect a deed, how to potentially combat and pull a property out of the county recorder, and the steps that it would take to require. Now, even if you have a deed recorded in the county recorder, the way that we have structured it does not necessarily grant jurisdiction over that land. And I really want you to get that, because it's the involvement of the FRNs, it's the involvement of the fact that you're using a legal description where they can show that there is a previous block on that land patent area underneath your legal description, to where they have mineral rights, where they have water rights, where they have whatever underneath your land. And so that's why they don't want you to do a deed fee simple, meets and bounds and so forth, even though you can. And so we've helped a lot of people, and we just recently in the last 6 months structured up a deed that you can use as a template to start. But if it's something that you're really interested in, and you don't feel like you're able to be helped, or you don't know what video to look for, ask Rob first for on the trouble ticket what video he thinks that you should be watching. Again, he's just going to go to the real estate records and he's going to give you several to choose from, because we've answered this question 10 different ways. And it is a little bit of a fight sometimes it's not, but it is something that we can help you with if what we've already provided does not answer your questions completely. I have started the Living in the Private program. I'd like to file an extension on my taxes this year to get the program completed before I send them in. Do I have to worry about filing open up jurisdiction? Do I have to worry about filing opening up jurisdiction if I have not sent any paperwork into the IRS yet? So when you do, this is a great question, just because it allows for me to explain how they are working from a standpoint of gaining jurisdiction over people. People think that state citizenship is an affidavit, filing it at the Secretary of State and doing a couple different things, and then going to some company and getting a passport done. And what these powerful banking systems have done, which hold the United States in bankruptcy and are the beneficiary of, and you, the United States citizen, not me, the United States citizens are the collateral and surety for the debt of this nation and technically the world. What that essentially, and how they are gaining access and maintaining the ability to control you is they've created all these adhesion trusts. The voters, it's a single signed document. The voter's registration, the driver's license, single signed document. The Social Security Administration for your Social Security number, single signed document. The IRS, they don't countersign your 1040s. They don't countersign your W4s or your W9s. Okay. Those are all single-sided agreements. All of them, all of those agreements and more, but all of those agreements that I just mentioned are trusts, adhesion trusts. That's a thing I've coined. And you have to look at them as such. They're not a contract. They're not an offer, acceptance, consideration, performance, full disclosure. They're your type of contract, but they are a trust. The state wrote them. It's a piece of paper. They are the grantor. State lists themselves as the beneficiary continually through the document. If you drive over 0.08 or higher in your blood alcohol level and we catch you, you're agreeing that we'll be able to arrest you and give you a fine and or sentence up to $10,000 and or 6 months in jail. Something you've agreed to, you've self-executed. So these are all trusts, okay? And what they do, they never countersign anything. They just give you permission to hold a license in your wallet. They give you permission to hold a social security number, which they still own in your wallet. Social security number belongs to the registered organization. It belongs to the birth certificate. It does not belong to the living man or woman. This is what people need to get through their, we all have thick skulls, and it took me a long time to understand the term straw man. Does it exist in law? 100%. I can show everybody where it exists, the words persona, the words identity. And if you read our documents, like the driver's license, like the IRS, like the SSA, we break everything down for you to understand this and them. So what we do is we, just like they do to you in stealing your house through a non-judicial foreclosure, the federal court system has a requirement that you exhaust your administrative record before you enter into a federal court case. So what we have done is we took the federal court case to the streets to get a summary judgment of what it would take in a federal court case. We took it to the streets and we created an administrative process. So like on a non-judicial foreclosure, this is what they do. They send you a bunch of letters. They send you a notice of default. 90 days later, they send you a notice of trust deed sale. 30 days later, they sell your house, not in the courthouse, but on the courthouse steps. None of it is done within a judicial procedure. It's all done in a non-judicial procedure. And the trustee makes an offer to their best friend, their attorneys, the people they see all the time, for $300,000 less than what your house is worth. And that guy gets the sale. This happens every single day. Non-judicial foreclosure, perfected administrative record. All we're doing is we're doing the same thing to them. First, we get the passport done through the DOS, Department of State. Same passport isn't blue. Passport isn't blue. It's blue. It's not black. It's not green. And anybody out there saying they'll get you a diplomatic passport, they're going to change the chip in the passport. You're going to go through the metal detectors. They're going to actually take you around the metal detectors at the airport, and they're going to pick you up in a golf cart and drive you to your airplane. And they're going to do a bon voyage and bow to you as you get on your plane. Look, those are all guru tactics to make you feel better about something that does not exist. I've called everybody out with their passports and claims of diplomatic immunity in this. Here's what I do know. I can't control all the buttons that are being pushed by every single person at Homeland Security, which is in the neighborhood, and NSA and CIA and FBI. NSA has over, in 2005, I don't even know what it is today, 1 million people. We can't control what everybody is doing and pushing buttons, but what I can do is guarantee we'll submit you properly and get you a passport as a state citizen. If you don't have child collection issues, child support collection issues, if you're not stealing kids and getting caught, and if you're not a felony international drug dealer, we can help. So the important thing I'm trying to say is you have to take a step back and look at all of those things as being done simultaneously or over a 4 or 5 month period of time. Whether or not you get an extension on your taxes or not has no bearing on jurisdiction. Okay. Not filing taxes does not have a bearing on jurisdiction, but I do want to disclose and help you to understand that if the only time I've ever seen somebody not go to jail for IRS related stuff is they get a 1099, a K1, or a W-2 and they don't file a tax return. That's the only time, or they commit fraud on a tax return. You can file a tax return late and you're okay. The thing is, there's a thing called revocation of election within IRS code. If you've seen our docs, you'll understand why we do all three. We're the only entity in the world doing what we do. We do a notice of removal of signature, very lawful. We do a notice of status, and then we do a revocation of election, but done as a state of the union citizen. Very important. And then we do notices of fault on all of these and certificates of default on all of these. In law, what we've done is perfected the liking to a non-judicial foreclosure, meaning we've perfected an administrative record. It's called a court of record. It is absolutely your case, evidence. And so we default the IRS, we default the SSA, we do all of your adhesion trusts. And the reason why I'm saying this is because that's how, if you reverse engineer a warrant or indictment, and please remember, people, the only reason why I'm looking at this stuff is I'm trying to figure out why other people in the past have failed. I'm trying to figure out why gurus are in prison. I'm trying to figure out why people go to prison. And all you have to do to realize that is read a warrant or an indictment and look at where they gain jurisdiction. Our living in the private program deals with every element of pulling jurisdiction away so they can't utilize it on a warrant or an indictment. That is what this is about. This is about the big moments in life. And now, look, I'm not giving you carte blanche to go commit crime. I'm not giving you carte blanche to do anything unruly against your fellow brother or sister. This is responsibility as a self-governed man or woman, respect and honor, because you're actually coming under God directly, and the judgment is much, much greater under God than it ever will be under man. And I know people don't look at it that way while they're here, but trust me when I tell you, that's it. So to answer your question very specifically, we're creating every element of attacking how they gain jurisdiction all the way across the board. So whether you get an extension, file it later, it's not going to have any bearing. I'm just going to ask, before you submit your 1040s, reach out to our back office to ask them how to properly deal with the 1040 from an oath standpoint on the bottom, because you're no longer a taxpayer. You're no longer a U.S. citizen. So there's things that you have to deal with on that oath before you sign the bottom line. That's the most important thing. Okay. As a retired couple using our bank account to receive our Social Security payments and turning around and cashing most of each check out for cash-based expenses and spending, is it raising suspicions at the local credit union that holds that account? No. Yeah, no, don't worry about that. Should I show them my books are legitimate and ease their suspicions? So how is it that you're taking and receiving your Social Security benefits into the account and pulling it out for cash? How is that suspicious? Maybe I'm missing something. That's all I ever do. I mean, I don't leave cash in bank accounts. Especially these days. Especially these days. All right, I'm hitting the Q&A now. Will HISA switch off? Yeah, what's up?
I added one more question to Wire. Do you see it down there at the bottom from Richard Hemsley? I added his question in a little bit ago. So
Okay.
I just don't want you to forget that one. Okay.
No, I won't. Thank you. With the passport process, can we send in the DS-11, or is it necessary to go for an expedited service? Can we send in the DS-11, or is it necessary? Okay, so no matter whether you go with the expedited or the non-expedited, you're going to send in the DS-11 plus a bunch of other documents that we create for you, Richard. I would not go for the expedited process, which I think that is the question, the bottom line question you're looking for. you will get the same service because they will respond with needing certain things, need a social, need this, and those are documents that will give you to respond with on your tickets. Don't waste the money for the expedited service. I'm not going to record this one. Will HISA switch off Zoom to a different platform? That's the second time I've been asked that question. I don't have any problem with it. But I like Zoom. But are they truly a Chinese company based in China? And what is better about working with another one versus Zoom? Anonymous attendee. Okay. And why would an anonymous attendee be asking me whether I should switch off Zoom or not? Chase, how'd those eyebrows look? Pretty good. Suspicious of anonymous attendee.
Okay.
Okay, next question. Calby, is it possible for somebody that is not doing the living in the private program to have a foundation paperwork done by his advocates all day long? We've done them, thousands for people. Does all income, regardless of source, not need tax payments to IRS once the contracts with the IRS are revoked? So, trick question. We don't have income. And if you were asking me what income is, you need to go look at Black's Law and IRS code. I don't have income. I don't need to report anything that comes through to a non-registered entity. The all caps name, my birth name on the birth certificate, is a registered entity. They could presume that money hitting the personal account were income. I don't have a personal account. I don't receive payments personally. And this is why we structure up things the way that we do through the private humanitarian foundation that is an unregistered entity completely out of their jurisdiction and no requirement to file a return. So any monies that you generate as the executive director for that foundation that goes into that bank account from any direction, there is no liability to file a return with the IRS. And I would go so far to say you are not allowed to, because you're not a registered entity with the IRS. You would have to go through a process to be able to file a return. So why? Will his advocates offer a service in the future to help people go through the process of achieving tax-free private property? We already have. We don't really do the work for people because we don't have enough people on site to fulfill that obligation or that work effort. And so we've done hundreds of videos that are directly answering people, and people that want to put in the work are able to figure it out on their own, and they will have pushback, and they can retain us for consultations to discuss how to respond to some of these things. That's basically the only, as far as we will go to help people. But as a broker, registered real estate broker in the state of California, there is no obligation to file a grant deed into the county recorder. That blew my mind. Now, that in of itself, if you can figure out how to get notice, which I've already told people, that there is a transaction that has taken place and you are not going to be recording it in the county recorder, and that you would like the forms to remove the property from the county recorder, and you FOIA them for the forms, that's your starting point to move forward to have the property out. There's some services, there's some notices, there's some discussions, some phone calls, but they cannot require you to record a deed. And if they can't, and they don't know who the new owner is, or have an address, quote unquote, because of what you're doing and pulling the property out of the county recorder, pulling the mailbox out, handing it back to the United States Postmaster, doing the different elements that we teach within the living and the private, there's no way for them to gain jurisdiction over it. So we just don't have the time to assist people. And I literally get offered money nearly every day to do everything for somebody, and I can't, because I'm backed up and I need to focus on what I know I can achieve within systems and operations. Hopefully, eventually, maybe one day, we'll have an international team of attorneys that know how to deal and affect this and jam everybody into the same notices and same cases and same joinders or classes or whatever, and be able to help our people out. We're freeing people, and I get it. You want your property free, but that's a lot of work to do on a fight. And we give you the tools to do it. On subject to real estate, can one learn to sell real estate and do so in an agreeable way with living in the private? All day long. Now, are you going to have tools of the MLS? Are you going to be able to affect doing the private side agreements for somebody that's not that is not all cash? No. Why? Because the banks are going to require a residential loan agreement. Banks are going to require certain things to be recorded in certain ways. They're going to want to see the everything that would pertain to a relationship between the realtor and that individual. So Veronica, your question would be more or less, if I am operating in the private, can I conduct a real estate transaction in the private? All day long? As a matter of fact, we've already done the docs on a private side, takeover for property and renting it out on the private side, where we remove jurisdiction from a court to have jurisdiction over our renter. And the renter agrees upon all these things, and the court has no jurisdiction over it. We love it. But that's because we have complete and total control of the property. Now, if you're getting a loan, if you're doing all these things, or your clients are getting a loan, then that kind of takes and puts a kink in the deal about trying to make yourself private from a real estate standpoint in the transaction. Now, if you're a broker, as you know, if you're a broker, and some brokers will do this for realtors, you can have and I know that, but some brokers, if you're not a broker, will allow for you to be paid through your foundation through escrow. And escrow does not 1099. So it says, in essence, receiving private side, quote unquote, compensation, not income, straight into the foundation. And the broker would be liable if anybody, but it wouldn't be you. If one of us uses more than one mail address and getting started in this, does one address continue to send your name and the other for the foundation material only? I'm thinking I'm misunderstanding your question, Veronica. If there's a couple of videos I've done that really explain what I'm going to try to explain in 30 seconds right now. And if you need more than this 30 seconds, reach out to Rob and we'll get you a copy of the video. You don't want to use the registered organization name and receive mail. A warrant or an indictment always is, I saw such and such person checking personal mail at such and such address. I went down to the United States Post Office. The United States Postmaster says such and such person receives personal mail at such and such address. Then I went to the DMV, such and such person has 2 motor vehicles registered into their name at that address. So I'm thinking to myself, wow, it's all zip code. It's everything above the land. The zip code falls into the jurisdiction of Washington, D.C., which is the exclusive jurisdiction of the United States, 9 USC 307H. So when you're contracting personally, 3 contract rule, That's why they mention 3 things to get a warrant, an indictment, or whatever. And this is why we do it. I'm not saying you're a bad girl or I'm a bad guy and I need to protect myself. I don't commit crimes, period. But I'm looking at the big elements, the forced anything down the road, the forced kidnappings. I'm looking at a repeat of the 40s coming into this country. Now, I don't want to speak that over anybody, but that is why we're doing what we're doing. It's not to deal with tickets. It's not to deal with law enforcement on the side of the road and fight them. It's not to try to educate the local law enforcement officials with 14 hours of our time and paperwork. That's not what we're here for. We're here to become free and to wait if ever anything bad were to happen to us, to our children, or what have you. So just stop receiving personal mail, period. Now, there's all kinds of ways to accomplish that, and still pull out of their jurisdiction. This is the one thing that takes a little more time than everything else, because you're noticing people, you're correcting their records, you're changing them in their records, and you're generally changing address and making everything go in care of the name of the foundation. I hope that helps. Our contracts, adhesion trusts that are based on other contracts, adhesion trusts automatically revoked when original contract is revoked? I don't think so. And the only reason why I say that is the way that they gain warrants or indictments. So like if, for example, you had a canceled E-Trade account or a canceled voter registration, I've seen them pull those into jurisdiction. So if that's the answer to your question, or you have a generalized statement of something done with the Department of State that lists all those contracts and you put it into the public, and then and then does that make them all void? No, it doesn't. It's creating a new agreement. It's creating a defaulted administrative process, court of record, proving the evidence in any case that you have done, effectually done, and created a new agreement with all of these adhesion trusts. Listen, the only reason why I know this is because I had a company where I hired a company in Canada to fax blast, period. They sued me. I ended up getting 50 plus lawsuits going at once because I harmed people emotionally because they received a fax on their fax machine. Okay. I didn't do the faxing. Everybody knew it. They knew we were getting away with it because it was coming from Canada. They were still suing us. And because we didn't know due process and procedure, we ended up paying $185,000 in judgments. And I ended up having to shut down a really successful mortgage broker operation because they would not stop coming. And the point I'm trying to make is I've had to learn how they've gained jurisdiction over people, personally, corporately. And it's all those things God uses. What I thought was the most horrific time in my life, lost my house, lost my cars, lost my business, lost everything, just like every other broker did in 2008. And I ended up on the streets in a 30-foot trailer with my family. True story. You learn things the hard way and you take those forward and teach people basically what you've learned. And I'm going to assure you that if you go grab 10 warrants, 10 indictments, 10 whatever, and read them, you will look at our living in the private program and go, I get it. Because it will answer the elements of how they gain jurisdiction and take that off the table. We just don't want to contract in any element with any adhesion contract or private trust. And if you have one, or you've canceled it, or you've had a blanket statement over here, an affidavit saying I've canceled these, or I've addendum these, or they have no power over me, it doesn't work. Every single individual one needs a new contract created, whether canceled, meaning the major ones: drivers, social, IRS, voters, airplane, firearms, different things like that. So you want to make sure that you're protecting your interest and putting that into the public and serving them with the defaulted notices, the new active state. And if you haven't got a diagram, Tracy put a copy of the diagram into the chats here so people can look at it. We're doing some new maneuvers on the diagram. We're in the process of changing the diagram, but this is a great informational piece for you to understand how we do it. Which version of Black's Law is the best to learn these legal terms from? I have them all. I used to like Fifth the best, but I don't really have a best. There are words in older Black's Law that did not get, meaning Black's Law is a book of words being defined by cases and or case sites and or professional opinions by important attorneys who brought briefs forward. But bottom line is that's what it is. When there are words in older versions of Black's Law that did not get, that are still shepherdized, meaning the cases still exist, did not get overturned, but they pulled the words out of the newer Black's Law so you don't have them in defense. And I've seen them change defined words within Black's Law to mean a few different things. And it's just like they hide everything, guys. They make it very hard to find stuff on estate citizenship, on all these case site, search engines. They make it very hard to find supporting cases for foreclosure defense. I mean, they don't want you to have power. They don't want you to have help. So I just use, I get a Black's Fifth. But that to me is probably the most prevalent, but I would get a few of them personally. Is it possible to open up a foreign bank account under the foundation without providing a social security number? Yes. How will the foreign bank report to the account to the U.S. government to comply with the banking laws? If they don't have a social, they won't. Do you recommend any banks outside of the United States? There's a bank in Australia that we are waiting on information from for a contact within the bank. Yes. As a matter of fact, the gentleman that gave me this information, I'm meeting with this weekend. So, but the question is, Trent, why would you even need it? Because an account here locally has a foundation. And Trent, I don't care if you have millions of dollars in tax liens, properly structuring, opening up the account, even at a large bank, there's no way they're going to take that account, take any money going into that account because you were operating out of the jurisdiction like you were out of the United States. HISadvocates has had a bank account with Bank of America going on 12 years and never any hiccups, never any problems, never any issues. They have said we need to do certain things. I write a letter and I tell them to go pound sand nicely. And same with PayPal. PayPal says we have to prove registration. I have a letter for that. There's just elements of things you just got to learn and do locally, and you'll have the same effect as if you're an account holder in Australia. Sorry, I'm late. I have two sons, 9 and 13. Neither have BCs or SSN cards. Can we go direct into the private with them? Yes. Now understand, there's a little bit of a fight for kids that are older. Like we have a lady, but believe it or not, she's 30 years old. They haven't denied her passport, but they don't know what to do with her because they don't know necessarily what they should believe. But younger kids, new kids are a lot easier to push through. No birth certificates, no social security numbers. Generally, all that's needed to happen is you're going to do statements of the midwife, statements of affidavits, meaning from the parents, midwife, and you're going to get a statement of no record from the Secretary of State of what state you feel the kid was born on. And you want a couple of witnesses and maybe a copy of a hospital checkup, but we always refute that as a HIPAA violation and hit them with that. But it can be done. Is there a best way to name my foundation, like as in how many words in the name? There's really, the only thing that we would recommend is when it comes time to do the tax ID number for banking purposes only. There's some names that are going to get flagged because those people have proprietary name rights, registered trademarks, copyrights, whatever. Just pray about it. Give us a name and we'll see what we can do for you. That's the best way I can answer your question. Anonymous attendees asking another interesting question. Sorry, anonymous attendee. More accurately, does all income generated under the name registered organization, i.e. W-2 or 1099, it's very specific, regardless of source, not need tax payments to the IRS once the contracts with the IRS are revoked? So if you have sent in a notice of removal of signature on those W-2s and those W-9s, a notice of status and a revocation of election, and you've effectually completed the process, and you put that behind an active state and you throw that to the IRS, there is no taxable obligation to the RO or to a foundation because the foundation never was an RO, registered organization. So people that have a W-2 or meaning or 1099 that they received due to a W-4 or W-9, I tell them stop operating with the W-4 or the W-9. I tell people to stop contracting once you're out, because once you're out, you're out. Why would you sign another W-4? Why would you continue to utilize the Social Security? Why would you continue to operate on something that you don't have to? Now, that question leads to a whole bunch of other questions, which we've exhausted and answered prior, which is, do we file with zeros on the W-4? And the answer is, yeah, you could. You can actually have a sit down with your employer and you can show them your paperwork. We can give you a document that will explain the fact that you no longer are using the Social Security number, that you revoked the status and use of it, and that you put zeros on the document and the paperwork. Now, that doesn't negate that because there is a Supreme Court ruling that if you are an employee, now listen to me very carefully, most employers don't know this, but there are some large employers that do. And that Supreme Court says that if you're an employee at all, whether you got zeros or social, and you're filling out a W-4 or a W-9, that not a W-9, but a W-4, that the federal income tax portion will be taken out no matter what. And there's a Supreme Court ruling to support that. That doesn't mean that Supreme Court ruling applies to a state of the Union citizen. It only applies to a United States citizen. So there is so many would haves or what ifs and variables at the time of when you become free, how to handle it. That's why we created the foundation. We say, stop using the social, stop using the name, and go everything through the foundation, because there is no jurisdiction at that point. Now, the next question people ask, and I've already answered this on a previous question on this show, is, are we required to file a return once we are done? And once we're out? And the answer is no. But if you want to file a closing return and label as much taxes as you want, and do not send it with a payment, I have never seen anybody get arrested for making a properly filed tax return, and where they reserve their rights on it, they cross out U.S. citizen, they cross out taxpayer, and they submit that 1040. I've never seen anybody get arrested for filing a return. Doesn't matter if they give you frivolous filings, doesn't matter if they give you anything, because once you're through the living in the private program, you will understand why you have created basically a Kevlar level 5 ability of asset protection. Your assets are in the name of the foundation. Your home is in the name of the foundation. Your cars are in the name of the foundation. Your insurances are in the name of the foundation. Your rental agreements are in the name of the foundation. Everything goes through that. Your contracts with the California Edison, your contracts with California Gas, your contracts with all for your house go through the foundation. And you close your personal bank accounts, you pull your mailbox, you literally are private anywhere you go because you have stopped using the registered organization. United States Postmaster receives a notice of removal of office of the person. The UPS store that you are receiving mail in care of the foundation name gets a new 1583 form from us to the UPS store. We handle every element of you being private. But if it were me, I would never use the social or sign a W-4 or sign a W-9 again. That is true privacy. Somebody trying to play, I'm the beneficiary of the trust and going in and out can maybe get their hand smacked at some point for playing those games or called to come out. A lot of people don't want to recognize what that truly means. It means you maybe not be an employee of that company anymore because they don't understand how to handle you. And there are some people that have had that, but I've also had vice presidents of major banks come completely in the private through a non-resident alien or W-8-BEN form with their employer. Okay, so there's all kinds of ways to get this accomplished. It's just that is the gray area of what your HR department is going to be willing to do. You understand? But it's not gray if you're using the foundation and you're not signing contracts with the employer anymore. Are crypto and Forex trading, regardless of long, short trade, trading able to be done in the private through the foundation? Absolutely. Or are these situations with either of these classified that would be classified as investments? I can't answer your question regarding whether they're going to be classified as investments. That's up to the SEC. But as far as crypto being done in the private, purchased in the private, held in the private, being tax-free in the private through a foundation, 100%. Question: does his advo recommend or encourage living trusts, private, unregistered, all day long? Does that equate to protection? Yes, I would equate it to a level 4 Kevlar compared to a foundation, church, private church ministry, level 5 Kevlar out of 5. But absolutely, I encourage people to continue to use their private trusts so long as they're unregistered. Is it possible to change the name after we come out with a state citizen passport and revoke RO Adhesion Trust? 100%. I think I know who this is. 100%. How do I check the internal foundation bank account paperwork done by the bank to make sure there's no crossover from the profile with the RO SSN over to the foundation checking account? So most banks, if you go to the ones that we recommend, will set up an account. Even if you have not done the SSN paperwork, we'll set up the account with the SSN on a profile on the side. Number one. Number two, there's no real need to check the foundation paperwork as it relates to the relationship with the bank, so long as you're signing the bank signature card the way that we teach. And the reason is a full reservation of rights without any jurisdiction granted to that signature card, any agreement granted to that signature card, yet the accounts get established. You get the ability to now operate through the foundation with that bank, not agreeing to being a U.S. citizen, not agreeing to being a taxpayer, not agreeing to those elements. And we teach people how to do that on the private side. Looks like we're done. 4 minutes shy. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, great job, Mr. Anonymous. That's going to keep you safe. But we don't do anything pertaining to income over here. And those questions are really good. Just guys, if you ever are stressed or worried about coming out or being private, I would be more stressed, and I tell people this, I would be more stressed and more worried by staying in the public side than I would ever be coming out and being in the private. Being on the public side, being a U.S. citizen, being a surety, being the taxpayer, those are all things I would never want to be. So God bless. We thank you for coming on, and that's going to end the Q&A for today. Hold on, I see a couple more. Let's see what we got. Thank you, Sir William. Why in the Q&A? Oh, there it is. What is Kelby's favorite health drink? Water. No tengo el link para entrar a Q&A los tienes. Come on. You know what? I actually understood that. So God bless, guys. We will be shutting off the link to YouTube, and we'll see you next not next Monday, but 2 weeks from today, 4 p.m. for more Q&A for existing living in the private or people that have questions. And if you want to get started today with the living in the private, or get started today with a passport, or get started today with a foundation, just reach out to our toll-free number 844-HISAdvo or 844-447-2386 and dial extension 702. It'll ring our sales department. They will be more than happy to onboard you and explain things to you. But this is by far the best solution that is out there for bringing people into the private. And our members, they don't get bothered. I can't say that about any other group. I've never heard of that with any other group. Most other groups always have issues and problems, and they come to us to get those things settled and or solved. And that's what we do. So God bless you guys. Thank you for joining, and we'll see you very soon. Not this Tuesday, but the following Tuesday, we're going to be doing a test for HISadvocates.tv to go live again for the first time in 3 months. And so I'm going to ask that you join us on the test. Just know it is a test, and we're hoping to get it nailed out, but it'll be next Tuesday, not tomorrow, 6 p.m. Pacific. So look forward to it. And if you didn't know, we do offer a prayer service on Sundays, 9 a.m. Pacific. You can type the word freedom to 855-452-0499, 855-452-0499, and you can get added to a list on anything that we do for notification on a show or what have you. But we just loaded our first show. It was slightly controversial but fun. Man Cave Chronicles yesterday on our YouTube home screen, and also hisadvocates.org, and also in our Telegram group. So go check it out anyway.